Now back to more of the Paul W. Smith Show. Here's Guy Gordon.
Well, because it happened on a Saturday, I don't know how many of you were able to see the closing arguments in the impeachment or what happened afterwards. Several senators trying to explain their vote. Others that voted for acquittal, trying to send the message that what they were saying does not mean that they anyway necessarily advocated for the president or did not think that he deserves some measure of accountability. All of them were trying to walk, in many cases, a very, very fine line, leaving a lot of it open to interpretation from those of us that saying, well, how can you condemn on one hand and then vote for acquittal? We're bringing David Dulio, who's the professor of political science at Oakland University, who we like to tap into at times like these to understand the lack of understanding that we have in our politics these days. Professor Dulio, it's always a pleasure.
Good morning, Guy. Nice to talk to you.
So for those of us that watched Mitch McConnell vote for acquittal and then come out with what was maybe an even better closing argument for conviction than the House Democrats gave, how do we process that? And what was his justification for feeling that he had to do both?
Well, I think it's certainly legitimate for some folks to look at what Senator McConnell did and say that he's trying to have it both ways, that he's trying to let Trump off, but he's also trying to be critical. But the other side of that is that he looked at it and said, not the greatest look for the former president, but at the same time, it didn't go far enough to vote quote unquote guilty and maybe lead to barring him from running for office in the future.
And yet, he went even further than that. He almost made an endorsement or an ask to see criminal charges filed against the president. I mean, it's one thing to say, the proper venue for this would have been a criminal court and leaving it at that. But he went even further in his pronouncement to say maybe that's the appropriate venue. Why would he feel the need to keep this alive with a criminal complaint?
Yeah, Guy, I think that's a great point, and it's further than I've heard any Republican go in saying that there's another proceeding that should take place in the wake of this historic second impeachment. And I would be surprised if that didn't happen. I think McConnell is getting into really what is going to amount to a battle over where the Republican Party goes in the future for 2022, 2024, and beyond. Do they stick with maybe the Trump coalition, or do they move to something else, maybe something that's more familiar to a lot of Republican voters out there that they've seen in past elections or past years in terms of policy positions and choosing different candidates running for office?
It was interesting. Nikki Haley came out on Thursday in an interview with Politico, and she is one that has been, to some degree, a reluctant loyalist, if there is such a thing. I mean, she has not been above criticizing the president, but she was a loyal soldier to him, certainly as his UN ambassador. She basically cut all ties in this interview with Politico, saying we never should have followed him down this road of saying it was a fixed election. We let him do it. We shouldn't have done that either. But she went further, and she goes, she believes that he's politically damaged goods and is no longer electable. Do you sense that that's a growing view or an outlier right now?
I think that's a growing view, and I think you're going to hear more calls and more statements that are similar to Nikki Haley. Not only was she a Trump loyalist, as you mentioned, and has become critical, but she's one of those individuals who is already being touted as a potential strong candidate for 2024. So she may be trying to stake out some turf here and plant a flag
right
for 3 years from now.
Well, and it's interesting to see the avenue she's taking vis-a-vis Marco Rubio, Ted Cruz, Josh Hawley. There's this notion that Lindsey Graham has put out there that there's no way that you can win back the House and the Senate in the Republican Party without Donald Trump. I mean, if there was a theme to Valentine's Day for the Republicans, it was breaking up is hard to do, because they've got this notion where you can't live with him, but you can't live without him either. Going forward, what is their avenue to try to bring back the suburban, college-educated, female voters that have drifted away from the party and have been replaced by new voters? I mean, Donald Trump, congratulations, you brought new people to the Republican Party, but some of them are also problematic, some of these far-right extremists. So how are they going to walk that difficult line, David Dulio, in terms of both having their cake and eating it too?
Well, that's the million-dollar question moving forward, right? And that's sort of the catch-22 that Republicans are in right now. And it'll be really interesting to see how it plays out in the next 2 and 4 years. Well,
it will be. As I was watching that testimony on Capitol Hill, just thinking all the 30-second ads that could be made about 3 a.m. phone calls, for instance, all it would be in the context of, there's a riot at the Capitol, Mr. President, where are you? I think that's going to be a theme that we see a lot of in the attack ads coming up for the 2022 House elections.
No question. Trump is going to be an issue in the coming election cycles. Democrats are going to use him as a club to beat Republicans over the head with for at least the next 2 election cycles. Also, somebody like Marjorie Taylor Greene is going to be an issue and is going to be maybe the next boogeyman that Democrats use against Republicans.
She is going to be the AOC of the Republican Party, David. There's no question about that. Or she could be a one-woman squad. Take care, David. Always good to hear from you. Oakland University professor of political science. Let's get to Rich Lazinski, WJR Traffic. First, back with more on the Paul W. Smith Show for your Monday.